friends, and honestly, I'm a pretty normal guy. This won't be a story of how I dealt with extreme hardships or how I overcame some tragic situation, but rather a story of discovering who I am and my journey so far. So let's get in. At the time, I was the youngest in the family, and before me was my brother, who is 2 years older than me. My mom and dad both immigrated from Ukraine, so they spoke both Russian and English to us. My parents didn't have much money, but we were getting by just fine. When I was about 3, we moved to Nashville, Tennessee. My mom was working, so my brother and I attended a preschool. This is where I had my very first memory. All I remember is me drawing all over the chalkboard with a red marker, and the teacher got really mad at me. The memory immediately ends at that point, which technically makes that one moment the start of my whole life. When I was 4, my dad got a job as a math professor at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, which is back in Canada. We got a house there, and I started going to kindergarten. This is where my story truly begins. I made friends with this one kid who didn't talk, like, at all. Everyone thought there was something wrong with him, but one day we were playing in the sandbox and he started talking out of nowhere. After that, we became best friends. Right from the get-go, I was extremely creative. Throughout kindergarten and grade 1, I would draw dozens of comic books. My teachers were really impressed with them and even asked me to share them with the whole class. About once a week, I would have a new comic book made, and the entire class would come sit on the floor and I would read out loud and show them every single page. There was even a little box in the class that had all my books for kids to come and read one whenever they'd like. Eventually though, kids became too cool to read my comic books, so I stopped making them. My whole life, up until very recently, has just been me trying to fit in. I've always had an obsession with being cool and fitting in, and I would do things that weren't really me. Because of that, I became a pretty bad kid. I was constantly getting into trouble and given detention almost every week. When I was in 2nd grade, every day at lunchtime, there was a milk stand where kids would trade milk tickets that they bought from the school for little cartons of chocolate milk. Me, being crafty and pretty good at drawing, made fake milk tickets and would give them to my friends so they could go get free milk using these little pieces of paper that I drew on to make it look like one of the real tickets. It worked for a while until someone told on me and I got detention for weeks. Around this time was when my brother and I discovered computer games. My dad used this really old Windows desktop computer and he would let us play online mini games. For the most part, my brother would play and I would sit beside him and watch for hours. Some of my fondest memories are my brother and I sneaking up at like 4 in the morning just so we could go play more games together. I started developing a passion for video games, and pretty soon I was on the computer for hours a day. It was around this point where I realized that one day, I myself wanted to make video games. When I was about 10 years old, I lost pretty much all my friends from elementary school. There was no specific reason. They ended up becoming the popular kids, and I still had my best friend. We met a couple other kids that were a lot like us, and we all stuck by each other. Throughout the next few years, I was really quiet and kept to myself, and so did my friends. When we hung out, we would laugh and scream and make really weird noises, but when we were in public, we were pretty much the exact opposite. We were never really bullied or anything, we just kind of kept away from any sort of drama or attention. The only thing people did know me for, though, was my videos. And no, not my YouTube videos, I mean my video projects that we'd be assigned in class. If any teacher ever announced a video project would be coming up, kids would all be really excited to see what I put together. Some of my best memories from school were when kids would laugh and compliment me after watching my movies in class. Keep in mind, I was very quiet, so it was a pretty big deal for me to begin.